Hi friends, this is Shimmer, and you're right here on Shimmer True Crime.
I hear a voice that calls me, the luscious screams control me, and I can't hear myself think the taste I'm liking.
Hi friends, it's Shimmer Johnson, and you're watching True Crime, episode 1 of my brand new series. So, I decided I was going to do my very first case, my very first episode here on Shimmer True Crime, to be the case of Corrine Punky Gustavson. She was only 6 years old when she was kidnapped from her yard. Yes, that's right, from her yard, and was later found unalived. And it went on as a mystery of who did it for a very long time. I'm gonna get more into detail on kind of what happened, but we're gonna start from the beginning and talk a little bit about Corrine. And yeah, so we're gonna start there. So let's start with Corrine. She was 6 years old, blonde, beautiful. She was just starting her life, and she was just the perfect little girl that anyone could ever imagine having. So we're gonna go back to September 6, 1992. Corrine was outside in her yard playing with her best friend Lindsay, and they were just playing like any normal two little girls would do on a Sunday morning, just minding their own business, enjoying each other's company, and just having fun. When basically this man, this is how Lindsay said it, walked up to the fence and just grabbed Corrine and put her under his arm and walked down the path in between the two townhouses at Rundle Park Village. And Lindsay, at the time, she was young. She didn't know what else she could do. She ran inside and told the nearest parent that somebody had taken Corrine. I just can't imagine how anybody could do that. Just walk up to somebody's yard and literally grab the closest girl to the fence and take them away. And this is exactly what happened to Corrine, and it's heartbreaking and awful. I actually remember that day when it happened. I lived in Rundle Park Village when Corrine went missing, and I remember the police coming, and there was lots of police cars, and they went around Rundle Park Village and they questioned everybody that lived in that area if they've seen anything, or they actually came in, and it was really silly. One of the police officers, I was really young back then, maybe 10 or 11, and one of the police officers came in with another gentleman, and they looked up on our mantle, and it was, you know, those kindergarten pictures, you know, they got the tassels and they're really young, and well, my sister had one done, and I believe they went to the same school, Corrine and my sister Chantel. And basically, the cops came in and they looked up on our mantle, and they're like, "Why do you have a picture of Corrine up on your mantle?" And we looked at the police. We're like, "That's my mom is like, that's my daughter Chantel." So that was weird. And throughout the case, they had suspects. They even questioned my brother at one point, thinking that he might have been involved, which he wasn't, obviously. We know this now, but I do have a very close tie on this case with Corrine, and it's super scary. And this is one of the cases that kind of got me interested in true crime. There's another case that I will eventually go through that doesn't have any answers, but we'll get back to that at some point. But yeah, with Corrine, we lived in the same complex as her. We were there the day she went missing, and It's just totally tragic. It could have been me. It could have been any of the other kids that were playing that day in their yards. It just happened to be her yard where she was taken. The police originally thought that she might have wandered off, but Corrine's mom, she was very dead set on she was taken, because according to her best friend Lindsay, a man had just walked up, taken her under the arm, grabbed her under the arm and literally walked away with her. I honestly don't know how anybody could do that. There are some messed up people in this world, and the person that took Corrine is awful. Corrine's mother was 100% sure that she was abducted. With Lindsay reporting what happened, she was sure of it. The police showed up that morning. Dave Bittman from the Edmonton Police Service questioned Corrine's parents, and Ray and Karen, I believe, were 100% sure that she was abducted and she was not just wandering away and playing where no one knew where she was. They knew that she was gone and she was missing and somebody had taken her. And being a parent myself, I don't even want to imagine that horror that the mom was feeling at that time, knowing that someone took her little girl and she was not able to do anything about it. Or I try to put myself in people's places sometimes, and it makes me feel awful, and I can't even imagine the horror that mom was feeling. That moment she realized her little girl may not ever come back. Dave Bittman decided to interview small, young Lindsay about what she had seen when Corrine was taken. The information that he got from Lindsay, even though it was small, it gave a little bit of direction of which way he took her. How she explains it is the man walked over to the back of the yard. He grabbed Corrine, and he walked between 147 and 148 townhouses. There was I remember when I lived in Rundle Park Village, it's a lineup of townhouses, and then there's little alleyways back to where you can go down to Rundle Park, and there's walkways and stuff back there. So I totally know where he was taking her to a point, because like I said, I did live there at the time. So 50 feet down that walkway, Dave Bittman, the police officer, he noticed that there was a footprint, and that could have possibly be from the abductor of Corrine. So they did get a nice clear print of that for the case, and they believe that it was some sort of sports shoe. It almost had like a cleat. The sketch of the impression was taken door to door, and I do remember that sketch when they came up and asked if we had any shoes or sports shoes that would fit that. And when I say that my brother was possibly a suspect back then, he had the same size feet as this abductor did, and he happened to be in the same area, and it was crazy. Long story short, as I said, my brother was not involved in this whatsoever. But they believed, like I said, it was some sort of sports shoe. And back then, everybody had sports shoes. So it was a very, very small, it was really hard to find anybody that was going to be pigeonholed into the person that did this abduction. So for the next couple days, they went door to door to everybody in Rundle Park Village and around the neighborhood in Abbotsfield here in Edmonton, Alberta. And we weren't able to find Corrine. She was gone. It was awful. And 2 days later, after she disappeared, the police got a call that a lifeless body was found in a trucking yard in the Strathcona, Alberta area. Corrine was left in a pile of mud underneath some trucks, and at the time they weren't sure how she had died. All they knew is that she had been SA'd, but since there was a lack of blood at the scene where she was found, the police drew to a conclusion that she was killed elsewhere and later dumped in that trunking yard. So apparently she was redressed because of the way that her pants and panties were put on, and the coat was put on weirdly, that the police knew that she was completely redressed after the SA happened and after the unaliving happened. So not too far from the body, they did find some tire tracks, as well as those same sport cleat marks that were left in the gravel. It was very similar to the print that they found near the Gustavson home. Corrine was taken for an autopsy that September 6, 1992, and that is where they discovered that she had been smothered to death, as well as brutally SA'd. They also discovered one pubic hair that was on the ankle of Corrine. It was a very small DNA evidence that they could find back then. Back in 1992, the DNA evidence wasn't as advanced as it is today, so they did not know much they could do with it at the time, other than file it and hope that the DNA technology would advance in the years to come so they could figure out who did this to Corrine. What was cool about this pubic hair that they found is it still had a partial root bulb on that single hair, which contains DNA. If the bulb is not there, it's really hard to get any DNA off of it. So aiming that they had that, it was a really good chance that at some point in time they'd be able to find somebody that matched that. The next 8 years were grueling for the parents. They had no suspects. Nobody knew who did this to their little girl, and it was draining on the family. In January of 2000, a new police officer got the case for Corrine. His name was Jerry Elm, and he decided that he wanted to take all of the evidence from that case and have it all re-examined, and which is what they did. They took swabs of the clothing and that little pubic hair that they had. They decided they were going to run a DNA profile on that and see if anything came up, because it had been 8 years since it happened. All the evidence was sent to a private lab in North Carolina, and they were hoping they would get something. 1 year passes and Jerry finally gets that call. So here in Canada, we have this amazing little thing called the National DNA Data Bank, where anybody that is arrested, their DNA gets put into this system. So when Jerry sent all of those evidence of the clothing and the pubic hair to the North Carolina private lab, they finally 1 year later came up with a profile, a genetic profile of who did it. And it came back to a man by the name of Clifford Slay. Terry Alm was very, very familiar with Mr. Clifford Slay. He was a convicted sex offender, and at the time, in 2000, he was actually in jail for another crime. And what I don't understand is why these people that, do essays and murder and all of this, they always get let out. Like, what is up with our system, especially in Canada? It's like they arrest them and then they release them. And this is still happening today, which is very scary and awful. And we really need to fix that here in Canada, because I think once you hurt somebody to that extent, and for it to be a 6-year-old girl, I don't think you should be let out of prison. Like, there should be a magic island to put them all. I know that's not going to happen, and don't come after me for that, but that's just... The police decided that they were going to do an interview with Clifford, and they were going to ask him why the semen was found on the clothing of a 6-year-old girl. The detective that was put on the case to do this interview was Detective Godfrey. And he wanted to get Clifford to feel comfortable, hoping that he would tell the truth. Detective Godfrey was hoping that once they had him in a corner that he would come out and speak the truth about Corrine and what he did. But in the end, he didn't admit to anything. And they even asked why the DNA testing had matched his DNA profile to the essaying of Corrine Punky Gustavson. So the next day, he decides he wants to talk to the police. After the first interview, where he would say nothing, admit to nothing, now he decided he was going to admit to everything. But he had his own story. Very cold, very calculated, and he knew exactly what he was doing. They had him in the room, and he started going into detail on what happened. He didn't have any tears. He had no regret. Nothing. It was just coldness. Coldness completely filled that entire room. There was no emotion whatsoever. And he decided to tell Godfrey he was having marital problems. So you have marital problems, and so you go and decide to kidnap a girl and essay her. You can't blame marital problems on your messed up brain. The things these convicted criminals do and say boggles my mind. That you could actually say to a police officer, well, I was having marital problems, with my common law wife. And that's actually what he said. I've been having problems with my common law wife, and there was a lot of things going on. And he explains that he was drinking, so he was blaming booze on the case as well, that he was drinking and he wasn't thinking. All he wanted to do was hurt somebody because he was fighting with his common law wife at the time, and he wanted to get back at her. And actually, what he was going to do is he was trying to find his common law wife's daughter and essay her. But luckily for that daughter, he was not able to find her. Unfortunately, he decided to do what he decided to do with Corrine. Like, I don't understand how you supposedly love somebody and you decide you want to hurt someone they love initially, and trying to find his common law wife's daughter to hurt, and instead decides to go for a ride and go get some cigarettes at the local Mohawk in Abbotsfield. And he goes and he does that, apparently, so he says. And he said he was super angry, and he decided he was just gonna drive around for a bit. He was really drunk, driving, not the greatest scenario. And he pulled into this little townhouse complex, which was Rundle Park Village. And he noticed Corrine and her friend playing in the yard. And at that moment, he seen her, and he made up his mind that he was going to grab one of them. And he explained to the officers. He then walked up to Corrine, grabbed her from inside of her fence, put her under his arm, and walked away. He then takes this little girl, sticks her inside of his brother-in-law's car that he borrowed, and drives her to this unnamed street. I can't even imagine what was going on in Corrine's mind at this time. Clifford said he planned to just drive to this unnamed road and just leave her there. Like, what reason would anybody do that? Kidnap a girl, drive her far away from where she was, and just drop her off. Like, it's obvious that that was not his intention at all. He then claims that he realized that this street he was on, nobody actually came down, and that he was completely alone with this little girl to do whatever he wanted to do with her. There was no traffic, there was no sign of life, there was nothing, just him and a 6-year-old little girl, Punky. He looked at her and he decided he was going to essay her right there, right then. And he did, for 10 minutes straight. He claims that after he finished, fucking gross, after he finished, that she was still alive. And he let her go. Like, who believes that? The autopsy straight out said she was smothered after she was essayed, so there's no way she was alive when he left her. He claims that he took her out of the car. They took her out of the car and put her on the back end of the trailer in that truck yard. And that was the truth, and that's what he did. And she was alive when he left. We all know that that was not true. That is not how it happened. But he would absolutely not take claim in actually unaliving her. He said he essayed her, but she was alive when he left. And Godfrey thinks that Slay was trying to be calculated and, was trying to minimize his involvement in the unaliving of Corrine by admitting to the essaying. And he knew that if he admitted to that and didn't admit to the actual unaliving, that it would be a difference between first-degree murder and a second-degree murder, or even manslaughter. So he was not being 100% truthful because he was hoping to get a lesser sentence, because he knew he was going to jail no matter what because of the DNA profile. So after this interview, they totally arrested him and booked him on the charge of murder. The next 5 years, he was left in prison awaiting his trial. May 2005, his trial finally starts, and the prosecutor on the case is Jason Track. Jason Track was a great prosecutor, and he believed 100% certainty that Clifford was 100% responsible for everything that happened to Corrine. He believed that when Corrine was left in that truck yard, she was 100% deceased when he left. The confession tape was actually played in open court, where he states, "I guess I essayed her, but I didn't unalive her," which is super surprising. And all I can say is Clifford is a textbook monster. Only monsters with absolutely no guilt about what they did would say that, to try to get a less sentence so that they can go out and do it again. It's ridiculous. Clifford had zero empathy. He had zero remorse for what he did. That's something you don't do to somebody, let alone a 6-year-old girl. But his words on that confession tape were taken as both callous and calculated, and the jury found Mr. Clifford Slay guilty of first-degree murder. He received life in prison, which is 25 years here in Canada, so he would be eligible for parole in 2030. It's 2025 now, so in 5 years, that monster is going to be up for parole to get out. I think if you essay somebody and you unalive someone, there's no getting out. I don't understand why Canada has that law here in Canada that you can apply for parole after 25 years. I think in such cases as first-degree murder or brutal essayings, I don't think there should be parole. And throughout this entire trial, Slay, who was 42 years old at the time, denied that the attack was aggravated or aggressive. He admitted to taking Punky from the yard, and he chose her because she was the closest one to the fence. So had Lindsay been the closest one to the fence, it would have been Lindsay. It's just awful the way he decided to just take her. I have no words. I have no words for this monster. He is just a horrible human being. I'm so glad that he was charged with first-degree unaliving murder. And he's one person that 100% deserved it. And thank you so much for watching episode 1 of Shimmer True Crime, where I tell all the stories about true crime, murder, psychos, and all the rest. So thank you so much for being here. I am now going to play one of my own personal songs that I wrote. That's why we call it Shimmer and Song.
Why am I so discouraged? Why do I feel down when I'm so far up? I worked so hard, found the courage, but even then I don't feel I am good enough. Am I so broke? Am I so cold? 'Cause I'm losing hope. Can't lose myself. I've lived through hell, made some choices I'm not proud of, know my vices, learn to stand out, can't lose myself. Why am I so embarrassed? We all have a past, we all have some lies. Why am I so unfocused when I can see the other side? I can't